Hey, second graders, welcome back for day 2 of asking and answering questions using a nonfiction text. So again, we're talking about how questioning leads to deeper understanding. So good readers use questions to help keep them engaged with the text and help make sure they're understanding what they're reading. So our learning target again is I can ask and answer questions using a nonfiction text to understand what I've read. So here are our question stems: who, what, when, where, why, and how. We use these at the beginning of questions to kind of help frame our questions and get our minds thinking. So good readers ask questions before reading, during reading, and after reading. We practiced all 3 of these skills yesterday during our lesson. We'll continue to do so even as we've already started reading the book. So before reading, yesterday we looked at the cover and the title to kind of start thinking about questions before reading. Today we can use what we read about yesterday to help us kind of ask questions. So these were our original questions by looking at the cover and the title. What is a plant? How do plants begin? How many steps are in a plant life cycle? Now we've already started to answer some of these questions, but we can still keep these in mind because we're still reading the book, Plant Life Cycles. We might find more information to answer these questions. Now, these are the new questions I have before I read based on what we read yesterday, as well as the cover and the title. So how many steps are in a plant life cycle? So we found out yesterday we didn't really quite answer that question completely. We learned a little bit more about it through the diagrams on page 6 and 7. Looking at the seed and how it grows into roots, a stem, and a leaf. And then today I also have the question, how do the different parts play a role in plant life cycles? So we were introduced to the parts of the roots, the stem, and the leaf, and I want to know, what is their role in plant life cycles? Like, why is it important? Again, during reading, we want to try to answer the questions that we have, and we also may form new questions while we read based on the information we get. We'll continue to use the headings to help us preview the text and form questions to answer while we're reading. So today we're going to read through pages 12 through 21 to finish out the book. So we left off yesterday on page 10 and 11 where we were first introduced to roots. So we're going to continue reading, looking at this page first. Remember, we can preview the text by looking at the text features. We have a photograph right here, and we have it labeling it as a stem. We have this caption say, leaves grow from plant stems. We can imagine that this is probably the leaf, which we also learned about yesterday in yesterday's diagram. And then we have a bold word, the word shoot. So I'm going to return to my glossary, and I can think about what the word shoot might mean. So if I skip ahead to page 23 at the back of the book is where we have our glossary. Went too far. So now I have the word shoot, and it's a new plant stem. So I can keep that in mind while I read that page. So I can navigate back. We're starting on page 12, right there. So that's where you can navigate using the bottom to navigate back and forth in the book, which sometimes you might need to do. It's not as easy as a paper book where you can flip back and forth, but you can still use the glossary as you come across bold words. So now we can begin reading, keeping in mind our questions and seeing if we can find the answer to those questions we've asked. The first shoot becomes a strong stem. The stem carries water and nutrients to the plant and holds up the leaves. Again, you can take a look at the text features before we read. Leaves use sunlight, air, and water to make food for the plant. And our caption here is, leaves are food factories for plants. We got 2 different kinds of leaves here we can see in the pictures. Take a moment to look at the text features. So we have our heading, flowers. So I bet you started to think about what questions you might have about flowers. Like what type of flowers? What is the role of flowers? Do all plants have flowers? Those are some questions that you might ask when you see a heading like that. So some plants make flowers. Plants make seeds inside their flowers. We're able to answer some of those questions we asked just by looking at the heading there. So we have marigold seeds, and then marigold flowers make marigold seeds. So this is starting to remind me of the question I asked about what role do the different parts have? And this is kind of showing me the role that the flowers have in a plant life cycle. When they are ready, some seeds fall to the ground. Animals or the wind will carry the other seeds to new places to grow. And this photograph is matching perfectly what the text is saying. We see the wind carrying off these dandelion seeds. And we know for sure it's dandelion seeds if you read the caption, because it says the wind blows dandelion seeds to a new place. So dandelion is the type of flower here, the type of plant. Ooh, this is a really good text feature. I can tell already that this is going to play a big, important role because it's taking up most of the page. And then it's got these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a diagram and it's showing steps in order. Remember, diagrams normally kind of show a sort of process. And I see the heading for the diagram is life cycle of an oak tree. So this is showing one particular life cycle. And it's got the steps in order of how they occur. So if I go back to read the text, and then I'll keep that in mind, and then we'll look closer in at this diagram. So at the end of the life cycle, plants die, their bodies decay. New plants will grow in their place. So now I'm going to look at a life cycle to better understand the plant life cycle of the different parts we've read about. So 1, the acorn sprouts. So I remember reading back before that seeds were where it starts. So an acorn must be the seed of an oak tree. So then I follow the arrow to step 2. A young tree grows. So we see the stem, we see the leaves, and we assume that there's probably roots that are laying into the ground like we've seen in previous pages. 3, the tree grows bigger. So that's an oak tree. You probably have seen these in parks, forests, different places like that. And then step 4, the tree makes flowers and acorns. After many years, the tree dies, and then it starts back over again. So remember how we talked about the flowers make the seeds so that it can keep going. So these acorns will fall and travel, and then once they're planted or get into the soil, they'll eventually start the life cycle process all over again, making a brand new oak tree. So when you go outside and you see these on the ground, think of them as seeds or the beginning of our plant life cycle. Now, you can keep reading. We've got our glossary, and then this is a show what you know. So we'll come back to this page when we talk about reading response. So we finished reading. So now we have to think about questioning after reading. So remember, after you read, you need to answer any questions you had before it started. You need to respond to questions about what you've read to show understanding. Now, for the next part of this lesson, you will need paper or something to write on so that you can participate. So if you need to pause the video to go get any supplies, go ahead and do that now. It doesn't need to be anything fancy, just something for you to be able to record answers and your thinking on. All right, now that you've come back, you have your paper, we can keep going. So after we read, we need to answer the questions that we have. I want you to take a minute and answer this question. How many steps are in a plant life cycle? Go ahead and write the answer on your own paper to show what your thinking is before we talk about it. If you need more time, pause the video. Otherwise, I'm going to go over the answer. So, how many steps are in a plant life cycle? I hope you were thinking about this diagram. So this diagram showed the steps 1, 2, 3, 4 in order. Now we have to keep in mind, this is just one example of a plant life cycle. So we haven't completely answered the question, but we do have an idea that it takes about 4 or so steps or more depending on the type of plant. But you want to kind of think the life cycle steps are about the beginning with the seed. The seed starts to grow, it gets bigger, it makes new seeds, and it dies. So it's about 4 to 5 steps based on the diagram and the other information in the book. To really answer the question, we would probably need to read more books about specific plant life cycles. But we've started to make that answer, and it's a good enough answer for our question right now, and it can lead us to further research later on. Next question. How did the different plant parts play a role in plant life cycles? Go ahead and take a minute to answer this question on your own. I want you to think about the different plant parts we've talked about. Seeds, roots, stems, leaves, flowers. If you need more time, pause the video. Otherwise, we're going to go over this question. So, we talked about the seeds are the beginning, which we talked about yesterday, and then they become roots. And then roots are the base and they get nutrients. The stem holds plants up and delivers the nutrients. The leaves make food so the plant can grow. And the flowers make seeds so the cycle can keep going. Now, I got all of these answers by returning back to the text. So I went looking for when they talked about the different plant parts. They started talking about roots on page 10 and 11, and they explained what the roots do. And then I kept reading and wrote notes on what the stems do, the leaves, and then the flowers. So I can always return to the text. You'll have this available to you when you look at the assignments page and the reading response slides. So you can always reread and go back to make sure you're answering the question correctly. That's an important step in asking and answering questions. If you're going to ask a question, you want to make sure you have the right answer that you get from the text by using the text and rereading, not just always from your own thinking. So now let's think about your reading response. This is how you're going to show your understanding for today. Go ahead and reread pages 12 through 21. Use the text to try to answer any other questions you had from day 1, your reading response. Remember that list of questions you had? You didn't answer any of the questions through our discussion. Use this time now to try to answer those questions. Then I want you to complete the quiz on Epic Books, the end of the book. What you need to do is you need to flip past page 24 to find it. Then you can answer the questions in Epic Books using multiple choice, just clicking on the answers. Then optional, you can answer the questions on page 22 in the book. So I'll show you where you can find these activities and assignments in the Epic Book link. So if you return back to the text, you go all the way to the end of the book. So here, the show what you know, this is your optional assignment, which you can just do in your head or on your scratch paper or even type into the slides. So this is just some questions that you can ask and answer based on the book. And the assignment that you need to complete is the quiz. So it says almost done, turn the page to finish the book. So you keep going one more page and then don't click this one yet. Click the blue button that says start the quiz. So when you click that, it will bring you here and then you'll click start the quiz and it will bring you to your first question. There's 5 questions and it will tell you if you got the right answer or not. So it will tell you if you're really understanding the text that we've read today. So those are your reading responses. I'm going to exit it so that you can take it on your own. This is what you need to complete on your own for today's assignment. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow for day 3.